Welcome, everybody, and welcome back to the Antarctic, and more importantly, Thanksgiving in the Antarctic, 1933, more precisely November 27th. The weather is truly frightful. The pot iron stoves run with propane gas are less than delightful, and we find our group of investigators um, possibly at the main communal slap up meal, possibly off on their own. And I think we turn the book over to them to discover what's going on. So let's start off with let's go somewhere unusual. Let's start off with Valentina for a change. What is she up to this gloriously horrendous Thanksgiving?
I would imagine she is not sleeping well in this cold weather. She's not used to it at all. But at least there's a hot story for her to follow up on. So we've got a lot of interesting things happening in camp. So she's just keeping her eyes open and trying to stay warm.
Perfect. And of course, there is just no such thing as too much pemmican. Um, Alternatively, how about Charles Stoddard?
Um, so it may be cold, it may be bitter, but I think he's probably grateful he's not cooking his own meal. It may not be good at what he could, get at a bachelor's dine out takeout package like sometimes the dining halls do. Um, but it's definitely better than he'd cook on his own. So he's appreciating that. And the coffee hasn't run out yet, so that's great.
Perfect. And of course, just in case there's any premature cases of food poisoning, not that there would be because pemmican, how about our good Dr. Tremblay?
Just for our audience, Roger Tremblay is from Canada. We had Thanksgiving last month. I don't know what y'all are celebrating right now. I'm looking outside thinking this is a regular Quebec night to me, so I don't know. I'm just sitting by the fire and having a dipping into my flask as usual.
Absolutely. And finally, but by no means least, our noble academic, Dr. Wigglesworth.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Wigglesworth, hailing from Harvard, and he's excited to finally make landfall to get to that geology.
Absolutely.
And as far as Thanksgiving, we'll take any excuse to celebrate. If you say we're behind a month on a Canadian Thanksgiving, we ought to do it twice.
I do it twice. My wife's American, so I get to double dip.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Yes, Tim Horton and Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So yes, of course the big news in the camp is that you've been joined, and you are joined for the main celebratory meal by Miss Acacia Lexington and her chief aide-de-camp Sykes, as they have, but as late as yesterday, apparently due to heroic deeds by Professor Moore in diplomacy, managed to get an agreement together to share some portions of the expedition going forward, specifically joining up for the initial push to find the remains of Dr. Lake's camp that was mostly razed to the ground by unfortunate events, those long or short 3 years ago. To that end, it's going to be, let's see, probably about 4 days or so before the weather lifts enough. Yes?
So I have a very important question for Valentina. How is Valentina writing about the dynamic between Starkweather and oh shoot, I just forgot her name.
Acacia.
Acacia. I'd like to know how Valentina is writing about this to the fans. Are you writing about, like, how are you describing the tension? Is this tabloid style or professional?
Valentina is writing 2 different versions. One that's very professional and one that is very, very, very torrid.
The sort of the like, will they, won't they, enemies to lovers type story. Okay, I was curious how this is going, because I think it's I think it's gonna be a fun sort of undercurrent to how this is being read.
Her entertainment is the one to at least entertain herself while writing one that's professional as well.
Oh, there's totally a market for it. You will that is the celebrity gossip about tension between the big figures. That is that they were doing stories about survivors on the first movie about the survivors of the Titanic came out something like a week after the Titanic sank. This is the type of things people love.
I do have a question about the combining of the camps. Is that in process right now?
That is essentially in process over the next 4 days. There's a more or less constant run backwards and forwards. This is part of the reason why Big Suze isn't around for Thanksgiving, because she's out on a dog sled supply run between the 2 camps, and is scheduled to have Thanksgiving over at the remains of the Lexington camp.
So everything at the Lexington camp will be making its way over here eventually? Is the plan?
Correct. Although, since it's quite an amount, a large part of the effort is taking your 3 tractors and their 1 tractor to essentially create a mini road between the 2 campsites. So there's none of that 4 hours of dredging, carrying sleds up and down ice cliffs and so forth.
Okay. One last question. Should we roll luck?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I should take a look and ask here. Okay. Now I need to ask in the other one. Okay, there we go. So we might as well add in, since you've been out on the ice now a little while, I think it's time to head to pulp luck. So the way this is going to work is if you fail your luck roll, you get to roll a d10 and add 5. If you make your luck roll, you just get to roll a d10.
So 1d10 plus 5 if we failed.
Yes.
And you said just a normal D10 otherwise?
Yes.
I'm putting this in the resources chat
Yeah.
because I'm not going to remember.
And I might just need to tweak that a little bit because I'm going by the AI assistant in Quest Portal rather than pulling up the page explicitly just for time. So.
Sometimes my propensity for failing comes in handy.
No such luck in my case.
I rolled a 1.
Nice.
So
Well,
that's 6.
that's still 6 compared to Edward's 4, so it's...
Yeah, I'm just rolling in the luck over here from all of the refreshes we've been doing. I think this brings me up to 86. I hope the Mythos plays cards because I'm feeling lucky.
And I guess to that point, especially during the Thanksgiving feasts, as it were, actual eggs being served, everybody can go ahead and make a psychology roll.
That was terrible for me.
Failed as expected. I only have 10 in it.
Oh,
Tell me about your mother.
yeah, indeed. It is very obvious to Dr. Wigglesworth, but everybody else's mind is more on enjoying the one last hurrah of perishable foodstuffs. Whilst there is an accord of sorts between Miss Lexington and Professor Starkweather, they are by no means happy campers to be in the same tent. They're sitting as far away from each other as they can and very deliberately talking sort of in their own little niche groups and just not communicating. And in fact, Mr. Sykes and Miss Lexington leave about as early as is possibly polite to head off and, with the excuse that they need to continue to set up their portion of the camp. Speaking of which...
Well, maybe I'll lean over to Stoddard and I'll say, I'm not sure I needed a PhD to see the tension there.
I mean, I'm pretty sure even the dogs can see the tension there.
Yeah. Let's hope that Mr. So writes a good piece.
Yes. And hopefully, may their estrangement be the worst problem we have in a while.
I'm sure the fires won't go overlooked. I'll just kind of go back to sipping. I do hope Suze is okay, I'll think to myself, looking out at the ice. She's probably having a great time.
Hopefully. I know she was feeling a bit cooped up, so hopefully it's a good chance to run without all of us slowing her and the team down.
And indeed, as foretold by your team meteorologist, the good Dr. Albemarle, it looks as the 27th finally dawns. Well, I say dawns, of course, it's the sun is up 24/7, but when the big clock in the main tent clicks over through midnight, the clouds lift, and the hope is that you will have a good 24 hours of decent weather. So it'll mean it's going to chill down a bit, maybe dip down to minus 25 Celsius, about minus 10 Fahrenheit or so. Interestingly, and somewhat unexpectedly, whilst everybody has been preparing for the mass flights over towards the last known location of Lake's camp up at the foothills of the Miskatonic Mountains, Professor Starkweather says, well, I'm not going to go waiting about while Moore does his detective work. I'm going to do it in Houston and fly up to the top of the Beardmore Glacier. I'll take Piscus on as well and his dogs. I feel like a good climb. You can reach me by radio when you're ready to push on. I'm sure you'll make your names in science, digging in the ground and whatnot, but the newspapers want stronger stuff for the front page. Man against the elements, sweeping uncharted vistas. The baying of the huskies, the ring of sled runners on the ice. That's what catches their fancy, don't you know? I'll be along, never fear. In a few days, I'll catch up to you and we'll all climb those mountains together, eh? What do you say? Well, I don't think you have anything to say. Of course I'm doing this.
Valentina writes down all of that verbatim and then writes last words, ?
Wonderful. And speaking of Valentina, how much is Valentina keeping in her notebook so far, and how much is she sending back out across the radio to the Gabrielle and hence onwards to the radio mast outside of Kingsport.
I figure she can't send a lot at one time. I figure it'd be a column every few days, like maybe a full column, but maybe a half one of just like an update, unless something major happens. The one she sends about the Lexington fire will be longer and explaining what happened.
Very good. Yeah, I could see not wanting to send anything about the Starkweather Lexington dynamic whilst they're in camp might not be the worst idea. So yeah, Starkweather lifts off at 8 a.m. The aircraft returning the Enderby, so one of the two remaining Boeing 347s, returning by about noon, having dropped them off and all their gear on top of the polar plateau. And a short, long, difficult to tell, certainly a very busy hour later, the two Boeings are ready and fully loaded alongside of Acacia's smaller plane. So first up are Professor Moore, the four of you. Suze is still out on a run. There's Michael Udul, who's the drill master, along with the first of 3 sets of cartons for the Pabodie drill. And with more of that will be brought up as time goes on, depending on how far away the actual camp turns out to be. So at about 1:15, the Enderby and the Weddell rise from the ice into the clear blue Antarctic sky. It is an absolutely beautiful day. You can see till the end of the world, and that the end of the world is still all white and flat. You formate up with the Lexington's Bell, and you turn southwest towards the Miskatonic Mountains and the last known location of the camp.
So we're headed towards the previous encampment. Is that the plan?
Yes. Let me find the. We go back to here.
Valentina will take a couple pictures of the Miskatonic Mountains when she can see them.
Absolutely. And yeah, somewhere up here is believed to be the remains of Lake's camp. After all, it was the rescue expedition that went out and recovered what there was after the disaster, whatever disaster it was that befell it 3 years ago. Took fairly good notes as to where it is, but it's not like there are a lot of good landmarks. Although, of course, the Miskatonic Mountains themselves are solid enough. And it does seem as though Starkweather's original gamble with the season coming in early has paid off, in that everything is just clear white and cold. And it's not even an hour after takeoff, so around about 2 in the afternoon, you start to see dark smudges on the horizon that then over time resolve themselves into a line of jagged peaks. If anybody has ever driven during the winter across eastern Colorado towards the west, it's very much that massive, slowly just coming closer and closer and seemingly being very close early on, and then you realize, no, it's just even larger and it grows closer as you go. Lake originally reported in his famous radio transmissions that it was much like approaching the Himalayas. And as you travel on for another few hours, that's probably an accurate way of portraying it. In that the Miskatonic Mountains are truly primordial giants. They thrust stark and bare into the upper air. It looks like just it's a wall, possibly across the end of the earth even. Most of the higher peaks, as you start to resolve them, are clear of snow. But you start to see the cones and the pyramids and the mighty monoliths of slate dark stone, dark against the bright sky, that they almost seem to suck in the light, or surrounded by a malignant aura of shadow. And the air around them, by comparison, seems almost luminous, especially as the sun moves and starts to set behind them, causing perfectly knife-sharp lines of darkness and light to pour out from around them. And as you get closer, you start to arrive at the actual foothills, which by any ordinary measure would count as majestic mountain peaks in their own right, rising 15,000 feet up into the air. But with the backdrop of the Miskatonics behind them, they really do look like just foothills. And you find yourself climbing higher and higher as you come up and over these lesser peaks, but still that massive massif even looming behind you. And you start to see the strange regular outcroppings of the sides of some of the nearer peaks of the Miskatonics. Cylinders, deep gouges, cuboid excrescences that just look as though they cannot fathomly have been formed by any mechanism known to science other than intelligent means. So as Dyer wrote in his in the text that you were able to read before, or that brought up, some of you might have even brought along, so the original Mountains of Madness. Little by little, they rose grimly into the western sky, allowing us to witness various bare, bleak, and blackened summits in the reddish Antarctic light against a provocative background of iridescent ice dust clouds. In the whole spectacle, there was a persistent, pervasive hint of stupendous secrecy and potential revelation. I could not help feeling that they were evil things. Mountains of madness whose further slopes looked out over some accursed ultimate abyss. And you're still flying after about 5 hours, so about 6 in the early evening, prowling around the upper foothills, now so above, so below, or so below, so above. Here in the foothills, the ground is uneven, almost turbulent, one might say. And indeed, the air this close in to the central massif with its northerly wind is exceedingly turbulent as well. So you find that the plane just bucks and throws pieces of equipment. It keeps flying loose from tie downs, clattering around. So I'm now going to ask everybody to make a luck roll.
Stoddard gets a hard success.
Those are some of the best rolls I've seen for everybody at one time.
Yeah, don't mention it.
All right, Wigglesworth, you lose.
No.
A solid wall of green, that's what I like to see. So whilst there's quite a bit of small and often sharp-ish material flying around in the bucking planes, through happenstance and fortune, no real harm come to our investigators during this portion. Nobody knocks their head, unfortunately, on the side of the cabin, or happens to have their leg just in the wrong place when a syringe falls out of a medical bag or anything like that. And then I would like to make everybody to make a listen roll.
No.
Valentina got a hard success.
Wonderful.
If that needs to be extreme, it can be made as extreme, but
No, I think we're good with a hard. So Valentina happens to overhear a somewhat shouted conversation between Dr. Moore, who's sitting in the co-pilot seat, and Douglas Halperin, who's the pilot, where Halperin bemoans the fact that his compass is... This would be so much easier if his compass would at least agree on which quarter of the sky magnetic north is. We're nowhere near the magnetic North Pole yet, but it's just jumping all over the place, and far more than the turbulence should cause. And he's saying, I'm sorry, Professor, I don't know if we've been here already. I can't tell. I don't know where I am. At which point, I would like everybody to make a con roll.
You started cutting out as soon as Stefan.
Yeah, sorry. I think I then need to have everybody make a con roll. Oh, and we briefly lost.
Okay.
Stoddard. There we go.
I think I'm here still.
Yep. Oh no, I probably
and I succeeded on my con roll.
Yes. The traditional, I'm in a hotel room, my network is poor.
As an aside, if folks want visuals, I put a reminder in general, but if you go to resources and scroll up, I found images of not only the paintings that inspired Lovecraft's descriptions, but also some of the features that we'll be encountering, such as the snow cylinders, some of the ruins, some of the geographic features, if people want visual reminders of what some of them, or if that helps enrich. So
if they're having a hard time navigating, is there any way that Valentina could look out the window and try to figure out a way to help, or something like that, with a spot hidden or something like that?
Absolutely. I guess my first question is, do you feel that it would be likely that she would have brought along or happened to have to hand something as parochial as a pair of binoculars?
I don't know that she would have thought of that, because she usually has a camera in her hands.
Right. Yeah, and unfortunately...
would.
I could grab Stoddard's possibly.
Yeah, by all means.
He with I but stuff. But I think because it would, it's like.
Okay.
That's a good line on. I'm trying not to help yourself.
I don't know if that helps at all.
Oh, perfect. So Valentina reaches over and grabs the binoculars, realizing that her camera, if anything, is more wide angle than telescopic. And you're looking out across this black or white on black white pattern, which is just rock, ice, and snow. And of course, depending on whether it's snow on top, i.e. white, or ice, so blue fading to black, and shimmering, and with the mirage effects going on as well. It's quite a confusing scene, but not confusing enough that it causes any physical side effects as yet, although bouncing around is less than pleasant. You do spot a small plateau of level ground about a mile in length, partially sheltered by a low ridge and surrounding hills. Looks like, thousands of others nearby, but you do also see some mounds and patches of darkness that are suspiciously regular, laid out in rows, seemingly. Go ahead and make another spot hidden for me. Okay. Do you want to luck that, or? That was a perfect time, of course, for my internet to start to die. It's like, I've now lost your sound.
I spend 2 luck to make it a regular success. I think
Perfect.
I put myself on mute again.
Is Stefan in chat for you?
What do you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, he can.
Interesting. I'm going to exit and reload because right now I don't see Stefan.
Okay. Here. Looks all good in green. Yep. So, Valentina also spots, and this is sort of what gives it away that, yeah, okay, you've probably found the right spot. Is that about a quarter of a mile off into the distance from the main collection of regular mounds is a different dark mound, but this one is more black on white and quite clearly man-made, particularly because there is a what appears to be the tattered remains of a flag stuck into the top of it.
Valentina would lean forward and point it out to Moore. Maybe even hand him the binoculars if he doesn't have any.
Oh, where did you? Oh, yes. That Halperin. Done there. We shall see what. Now I get to see if I have. Yes, I do. So we will see how Halperin does. Okay. Let's see who in the party has the least luck at the moment. If I scroll back, 86, 69, 71, 83. Looks like Charles. If Charles could go ahead and take a D3 damage, please.
All right, then. Health damage, right? D3.
Yeah.
There it is. So D6 divide in half?
Yeah.
Okay. So 5, that's 3 damage?
Yep. The reason being that in order to come down and land on this surface, the wind is blowing towards the mountains, essentially. So you're having to land get up really close in the turbulent air up against the mountainside, turn down, straighten out at the last moment, and come down and land. And good news is, at about 50 feet, the turbulence dies away quite significantly. Bad news is that catches Halperin by surprise. So he ends up setting down the plane quite forcibly onto the skis. And it just so happens that Charles is the unfortunate person who happens to be sitting more or less on top of the landing gear at that point and slams forward into the back of the seat and gets a gash on his scalp. But no worse injury to pride than that, as it were. Just a bump and a cut. But with that, the roar of the engines dies away as Halperin brings the plane to a halt before you run out of flat ground, replaced by silence and the singing wind. It's a desolate and lonely sound. For a moment, no one moves. Then Professor Moore unbuckles himself and crouches down beside you, as has been his wont, looking each of you intently in your eyes in turn. You know why we're here, of course. We're here to find out what happened 3 years ago. What really happened. Something terrible took place outside, just a few yards from this spot. I don't know what it was, but it cost me a number of good friends. And the ones who know what it was, the ones who came home, are afraid to tell. I know those men, as I knew the men who died. Lake, Atwood, Carroll. They were brave fellows, not afraid of the unknown. William Dyer and Frank Peabody were brave men too, unafraid of death, unafraid of the truth. Those who came home, however, each and every one, are lying about something they are unwilling to tell to the world. I ask your help in this. You're not afraid to look under rocks or to make sense of what you find. I want to know what is here, where everything is, before calling Mrs. Starkweather. Don't move anything yet, but find it all. Clear off as much snow as you can without disturbing things. We have a better part of a day before the drills and ice melters arrive. Apart from setting up your tents, the site is yours until then. I want to know what killed my friends. He stares, lost in thought for a moment, just out of the window into the grey-white snowscape and across at the Belle and her crew, so the Lexington plane that is also touched down. His face very carefully bland, very clearly carefully bland. Then he turns to the doors, fastens his snow goggles, and steps out. So we have
So did Starkweather landed as well? and he's out doing stuff, or is he somewhere else?
Stockwood is out doing things.
Okay.
Yes, he's out ostensibly climbing Antarctic mountains for glory and fame.
Okay.
And so it is the evening of the 27th, and Moore, with his practical mindset as ever, saying, let us take heed of the lesson all around us. There's going to be wind, lots of it. So let's prepare for it. And what will get constructed over the next, basically during the evening here, is a camp where you have 3 large tents, each of which can basically hold the entire group of 12 of you at once, seated or standing. There's the kitchen tent with accompanying larder. There's the generator and radio tent. And there's a specimen and supply tent. You worked to not only put up ice blocks upwind of them, but the crates and barrels of supplies that can be left out in the cold also form part of that wall. Then you have your own accommodations downwind of there, each buttress behind a snowbank of their own. And then the lone biology tent down on the far downwind side, because as Dr. Moore says, sometimes specimens just happen to have an odor. And by the time you've managed to have a walk, and then off to the side, there's the Lexington camp, similarly laid out behind a snow and supply wall. And whilst you have time to wander around and explore a little bit, Packard, who's the crew chief, and Sykes, who's the Lexington crew chief, raise the large radio antenna and connect up the generator, and also help mark out the runway with colored flags. And you have your first meal in camp by about 11 p.m. Antarctic time. Acacia, Sykes, and her team are done about an hour before you, but happily help you to the extent that you're willing to have them help, without really needing to be offered. So to that end, how willing are you for the Acacia group or the Lexington group to help you out with, say, pitching your own personal tents and so forth?
I don't think Stoddard has a problem with it. It's Starkweather that usually does, and he's off chasing glory and mountaintops.
Valentina's all for it and would use the opportunity to just chat with her if she's around.
Roger's on board. He's actually very amused by this whole thing and is willing to supervise.
Any particular yay or nay, as it were, from Dr. Wigglesworth?
Okay, I'm not going to hold up the fun, but also we're here to do just that. So yeah, let's do it.
Okay. And to that end, you find that Acacia in particular is actually quite a pleasant individual. She's willing to put her gloves on and join in the hard work just as much as the rest of her team. Gives a good word when she spots something particularly well done. Perhaps slightly annoyingly, it turns out that Acacia has brought along her, as it were, moral equivalent of Valentina, one Mr. Priestley, who carries around with him a large film camera and is busy every now and then just interrupting and going, excuse me, if I could just have you stand just so here for a moment, just to record this moment for posterity. And I would say everybody could go ahead and make a psychology roll.
Not having any luck with psychology today.
It's like the only skill I'm succeeding at.
I do kind
like
of like
20
this
times.
opportunity to get to know Acacia Lexington after the various failed attempts. I'm trying to think. So I rolled a 12 and I have a 10 in it. I'm like, am I curious enough about this to spend the luck? You know what? He's cold. He's setting up camp. I don't think he's gonna know. I think it'll be that like, what? No, go back to a thing.
Charles isn't quite the social animal of the season. That is fair, probably. So during that time, during those 4 or so hours, as well as setting up your own camp, you do have a bit of time to start to walk around the area of Lake's camp, as it is off to the side. And so what you have is a largish covered area, a line of 6 tall snow-covered mounds, some variably between 2 and 6 feet above the overall surface. A group of 8 rectangular shapes lined up in 2 rows of 4, so quite probably tents. A larger set of 4 broken down tents, possibly, well, you think in the end hangars, if only because at one point you do see the remains of an aircraft wing sticking out of the snow. It has been completely snow blasted and ice blasted clean, so it's just bare metal, but it sticks up like a whale fin out of the white snow surrounding it. The tent humps and mounds are about 2 to 6 feet high. 2 of them are recognizably tents. The rest are, well, just shapeless lumps of snow and ice. As you move around, you also notice that there is an irregularity of snow depth. There's areas where the snow has blown away completely down to the ice, and there's areas where it's drifted up to 4 feet thick. Where it's drifted, it's then quite frequently frozen and refrozen. So it's that wonderful, even though it's really, it's quite cold. I mean, at this point, it's down to about minus 25 C. It is that glorious, I don't even know what the English for it is. In Swedish, we call it skosh now. But where, yeah, it's where the top layer of snow has frozen into ice, so that you're walking along the top, and just every 10 or 20 steps or so, you put a little bit too much weight on it, and you step through and fall through up to your knee.
Yeah, that would be like it's got a crust. It's like almost, some places it's like 2 inches thick. Others it's almost not there, and yeah. It's wonderfully hard to bang your shins on as you go down. It's slippery sometimes, unexpectedly, and other times it's gritty. We've got old snowshoes, so we don't have cleats on these snowshoes, do we?
Nope.
Your snowshoes are great for not sinking through, but traction gets a little complicated.
Absolutely. As you step out into the more snowy areas. So by the time that you had a chance to walk around a little bit and get your bearings, you see Professor Moore come out of the radio tent back at headquarters, as it were, so quarter of a mile away, waving at you. It's apparently time to gather for the communal stand around the radio and see how it performs. And the takes a while to raise base camp. It's as if there's some interference on the radio signal that Moore wasn't expecting. He was, the antenna is big enough that for the few 400 miles or so that you have to base camp should be more than enough, powerful enough to give you clear signal, but it's kind of, you end up having to send everything 1.5 times, as it were. But you do get a signal in from Starkweather saying that they've arrived at Camp Nansen and they're going to set up and climb it over the next couple of days. Don't you worry, lads. I'll wave at you when I get to the top, right after I plant my flag. Moore reports in that, yes, you found the camp. It's pretty much as dire explained that he found it in what he published as his report of the rescue party. And you're going to, he says that, we'll be spending some time up here seeing what we can find and see if we can find any remnants of Dr. Lake's great discoveries. Whilst you were out exploring as well, the 2 Boeings took off and headed back to base camp to start the next resupply run, but they won't be back until tomorrow afternoon. So you are quite literally alone within, for as far as you're aware, the nearest human person is probably 300 miles away. And you settle in for the night in the campsite is situated so that it sits in one of the slivers of full-time light that shines out from the Miskatonic Mountains as the sun traverses behind them. So there's a dip in the 35,000 foot tall peaks, just far down enough that it allows the midnight sun to shine through. So you at least, but further on down, sort of about 3/4 of a mile further east, there is just a line where it gets immediately black, dark black, in the complete shade of the mountains. But you wake up on a clear and calm morning on November 28th. It's quite balmy. It's a whole 0 Fahrenheit. Most of the morning is spent just getting more of the camp construction in place. And by about noon, Professor Moore excuses himself and heads off towards the, in the direction that Dr. Stoddard saw the lone flag on top of a mound. I don't know if anybody wishes to accompany him, or if you're going to keep busy getting the camp that little bit extra ready, as it were, whilst you have the chance.
So
or if you want to
Stoddard-
go somewhere else.
I think Stoddard actually wants to go along for this one, because this camp has the ghost of the camp they're setting up in the skeleton of, or next to, has had samples and findings that captured Stoddard's imagination. He is, he's a biologist, he's a paleontologist. This is where they were keeping, if he understood, this is where they were doing, where they had taken some of the discoveries that, of course, out of character were aware of what they were, but in character were these strange beasts from an age unknown to man. That's and while there's a tragedy here, and there's a tragedy, there's a mystery, and there's knowledge to be found, and so I think he's intensely curious. So he will, even if it's not directly to the mystery that is most important to him, or that's most relevant to his field. Obviously the tragedy does matter to him. I think he's interested in finding more breadcrumbs for where they may lead. So he'll go with Moore, if Moore will have him.
Oh, certainly. Anybody else?
Valentino will go as well. Thinks that's where the story is in the old camp.
Yep, Wigglesworth is in. He's a glaciologist, and if that can be put to good use here, then so be it.
Roger's just going to have to go along, I guess. I was about to stay back, but I'm like, everybody's going? Oh, crap. All right, I'm going.
There's nothing wrong with staying back if that makes sense for your character.
I mean, Lexington and her group are back there. You've got the camp boss, the plane crew prepare. Well,
don't get me wrong. Roger is watching all of you guys pack up to go and going, guys, what the? Well, I guess I'm coming.
Perfect. Well, it's about a half-mile walk across the snowfields. There's down at main camp below the ice ledge. There was either no wind or too much wind. Up here in the in front of the mountain massif, there is more of just at least at ground level. Obviously, further up, it's remarkably turbulent. But down here at ground level, there is just this almost constant wall of wind pressure. Not a whole lot, maybe just 4 or 5 miles an hour, something like that. But it's unrelenting. And it takes a little while for you to get the feel of either just how much to lean forwards walking into it, or how much to sort of take advantage of the road coming up to meet your feet, as it were, when moving downwind while still remaining control. So after about a half mile, you come up to what is quite clearly a cairn. It's built up of ice and rocks, but it's entirely free of any covering snow, about 15 feet wide, 10 feet across, and about 4 foot high in the center. The ice and stone that the cairn is made out of appears as though it was quite possibly blasted out of the local terrain, in that it's jagged, it's not, there's no smooth cuts. Also, it's quite round, and fastened to the top of the cairn with smaller stones. You see 2 faded flags up close. One is the Star-Spangled Banner, and the other is the flag of the Miskatonic University Expedition. And you see wedged against the base of the rocks, somewhat hidden by snow in fairness, a broad wooden plank, deeply and carefully carved, with an inscription blackened by India ink. In memoriam, Miskatonic University Antarctic Expedition, January 24, 1931. Donald Atwood, Philippe Baudreau, Nigel Brennan, Augustus Carroll, Theodore Daniels, Thomas Fowler, Percy Lake, Ashton Mills, Gregory Moulton, Peter Orendorff, Robert Watkins. We have opened the door to a new world, and none can now say what we shall find. And Moore walks up to it, takes off the hood off his coat, but still wearing his 2 layers of coverings below, and sits down on his knees in the snow and seemingly contemplates the cairn in silence.
Brave men.
And eventually, Professor Moore stands back up and says, "Indeed they were, and we shall not let their memory be forgotten. Let us return and see what it was they found." And Unless anybody wants to do anything specific up at the cairn, he will lead you all back. And he leads you back to, of all places, the first of the hillocks that form the straight line. And he says, well, let's see what it is they found. And he takes a shovel and says, please, give me a hand. And indicates you should, actually, you pick up shovels and implements as you head back through your camp on the way down here. And Moore is happy to work alongside those of you that wish to start digging through the snow and perma ice of the Antarctic. But he works probably harder than any of you that wish to help him out. He's almost driven, it seems, to see the contents of this mountain firsthand. And it takes about an hour or so until you start to see a dark form appearing through the eyes. And he cries out, "Stop! Look! Yes! Yeah, it is! This must be one of them! One of Lake's great finds!" And you continue on digging up as you start to reveal this large shape, seemingly 2 foot wide, probably as much as 8 foot tall, laid out vertically in a deep ice shaft. So you're digging out the snow and loose ice around it. I suspect that I should ask Dr. Stoddard for a paleontology roll.
Regular success. He is definitely excited about this.
Oh, yes. Well, it's quite clear that Lake was very clearly onto something absolutely amazing. This is beyond any. This is nothing like you have come across in any text anywhere. This is just. This is strange. Moore exclaims that it's not a plant. Dr. Stoddard, I don't know what it is, but they lied. Why did they lie? Valentina, go get more film. We have to record this. Dr. Trombley, if you would, get the crew boss. We're gonna need tackle and block. This thing is just too big. We can't move it.
Valentina's going to.
Yeah, and I'm on a bad connection again, briefly. Looks like it's recovering. And indeed, as all sorts of equipment is brought back, and a tackle and block is brought forth, and I get to add yet another piece to the campaign notes. What is produced is something beyond the ken of men. Some ridged, barrel-shaped objects with thin horizontal arms radiating spoke-like from a central ring, with vertical knobs or bulbs projecting from the head and base of the barrel. Each of these knobs being a system of 5 long, flat, triangularly tapering arms arranged around it like the arms of a starfish. If you want a little bit of a picture, there is an Elder Thing handout in the
Spooky.
and of course, it goes without saying that everybody gets to roll sanity.
That's what I was going to ask.
Ah. I haven't clicked this button in forever.
I failed. I rolled a 69.
I succeeded.
No.
He was very excited to be a science boy.
No.
This is
70
cool
sides.
stuff. So I'm looking at this everyone failing and Stoddard succeeded. He's just like he is super hyped. Like he's almost not noticing that people are like, ugh. Because like there is usually when he gets to deal with he's dealing with fossils. This has flesh on it. Like you don't get this type of find all that often. Like, oh my goodness, like there's I bet if we thawed this, there'd be some we actually have tissue here. Which is probably not helping some of the feeling of unease, but
I think I'm gonna be sick.
Well, the good news is that the roll for failing this sand roll, or for making the sand roll, is 0 sand loss. Particularly because this particular one is somewhat injured. But first seeing one of these up close and real and smelling its faint, malodorous scent on top of that is a D8.
Oh, good God.
This is going to go bad.
So bad. Oh, boy,
so
here we
that's in
go.
addition- so you take that.
Oh,
Is
that's
that-
a number. That's a number.
Is that part of the sand roll we just made, or is that separate?
Oh, shit.
I got a 5 and you got a 7. You win.
Oh, that's That's
no.
fantastic.
Wow, all 5s.
The
We've been
anatomy is
drinking,
not
right?
Section,
human.
are you?
We
Burn
were
it all
drinking,
down.
weren't we? Oh my God.
Well, the good news is that at least you're in a group. You're not standing alone out on the Antarctic ice mass.
We get to have an intelligence check now, right? Before this
We
gets too
get
much
to have
further.
an intelligence check, yes.
Okay, now
I
everybody
don't
fail
believe that. I don't believe that even Valentina would have started with low 40s.
Oh,
My
I
best
failed.
roll of the night. I know
The failure
exactly
you
what I'm
want to
looking
have,
at,
right?
and it's not human.
Well, that's an extreme success. You know what's going on.
Yep.
Oh no, oh no, Tremblay. You can't justify it away.
No. I'm just sitting there shaking my head the whole time going, no, 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 no. And I'm going to repeat that over and over and over again. No. No.
And if I could then just have a. Okay, so we have Rogers. We have Valentina. And if I could have an intelligence roll for Dr. Wigglesworth, please.
Certainly, yes. Just a little intelligence roll.
After all, what are the chances that a story professor is going to fail an intelligence roll?
You know, I don't know. I hope I can. No, come on.
Okay. So, doctors,
Ah,
Doctor and Professor Tremblay Wigglesworth, would you each care to roll a d10 for me?
well, this is all happening fast.
Things tend to go bad fast.
If that was Bennett's constellation, you need to work on that.
Okay.
I guess we're all insane together, though.
No, just a couple of us are going insane.
Um,
One thought this was normal, and the other said, I don't know what this was, but it's not what I think it is.
It's like a couple dead dogs frozen together or something. I don't know.
There you go. And this whole time I'm going back through the rolls going, when should I have used luck? Oh, crap.
yeah, so I think that Roger Tremblay is going to be experiencing a bout of chemophobia, which is the fear of cold.
Oh, no, you can't do that to me. Oh,
Meanwhile, and perhaps more interestingly,
The fear of cold. Oh, wait. That's everywhere.
yes, the side effect is that you have a penalty die as long as you're exposed to cold.
so the whole time I'm here.
Yes.
Is there any? Does he have any chance that we'll warm him up enough?
Well, he could run back and wrap himself around one of the cast iron propane stoves back at the camp.
That'll warm him right up. Oh boy. Well, if I recall, after you're done going nuts, then your phobia won't have its penalty. But yeah, I think every time you go nuts now, that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Fortunately, not. Since this is just a temporary bout, you're okay. It resets once the
That's
the
what
matter of
Oh,
rounds has gone away.
that's what I was
Okay,
talking
that's
about. Like
what we're doing here.
he basically gets out of stress, and it's what hours? It's a couple hours before it's complete. He can reset it. I think.
In reality, it's more like it's system-wise, it's a D10 rounds, but some short. By the time that he's rushing back towards by the time he reaches the camp, he would have shaken it off. Is the way I look at it, but it probably does send him running for. Alternatively, of course, there's always the option of jumping into the corpse of the thing, or just trying to burrow underneath the clothing of some of your teammates to seek warmth.
Right. He's in a bout of temporary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So temporary is so the initial bout of temporary is rounds, and then any sanity break within or any sanity loss within a D10 hours re-triggers it, if I remember correctly, versus indefinite, which is days or longer.
Yeah.
And how
So
about the phobia? Does the phobia not linger?
so
No,
yeah, you're going to have your initial bout, which is going to be a couple rounds, and then you're going to be sensitive to it for out. Like it's going to be like that trigger. It could be triggered for hours.
And like if you roll sandy later, it might come back into play or stuff like that. So
yeah. The other one that you're thinking of is when you lose 20% of your starting sanity after your last long rest, as it were, or decent period of recovery. That's when you're dealing with indefinite insanities, and those keep triggering every time you take sand loss.
Yeah, no, there was a very in-depth discussion over sanity rules.
I just missed by 20%, so like by a point.
No,
So
it was very close. So the bad news is this cold is bad for you right now. The good news is, well, the cold's not going away. You will be able to get your faculties under you.
but
I'm
is
going to
the
make a run
silver
for it.
Run.
Run to the fire, run to the blankets. Is it cold? I'm just going to run and shiver.
I think that will call for a dexterity roll.
And then after we can punish Jacobu, right? Okay, good. Dexterity. Oh, yeah.
Eventually, we'll get to the rocks, and then you'll be thanking me.
I'm going to say go ahead and...
I'm using luck. Screw this.
You're using luck, okay.
10 luck.
Yeah. You do that trying to run way too fast for what the ground can handle, especially in snowshoes. So there is a significant amount of slipping and sliding, but somehow you're slipping and sliding in such a way that your feet always land underneath you and keep you upright.
Dun 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 dun.
So just to paint the scene a bit clearer in everybody's mind, you obtained the block and tackle from the camp boss, brought it down. You managed to rig a lifting rig, as it were, underneath the appendages of this thing in its vertical ice cylinder. And you've lifted it up so it's currently just hanging over the hole. when Roger takes off and flees for the camp. Dr. Wigglesworth, you're overcome with a sudden sense of having just been caught perpetrating an almost defiling act against the very earth that you have dedicated your life to studying and caring for and experiencing. Bringing this thing up is a desecration. It's vile.
What have I done? All the years I put into the Rock Museum. No. No! I cry out dramatically as I drop to my knees and look to the sky.
Calm. Yes. How does so Dr. Moore doesn't really pay much attention. He's just absolutely transfixed by this creature. Well, whatever it is. He's just going on in his. It's real. It's real. What were they hiding? It's the find of the century. Indeed, it is. Something happened. Something must have happened. It's all so very wrong. But what is the how does Stoddard react to, well, perhaps not so much the creature, but the reactions of those around him?
So we know he's not that great as the interpersonal, so it's going to take him a moment to realize something's wrong. There's that, because I mean, he is very much like, oh wow, and he's sort of in. There's that. Then I think, like the meltdowns have started before he notices, because it is that big shock, and so he kind of like looks up and sees people going ah. And he kind of is like, I didn't think it was. He like looks at Moore, goes, I didn't think it's that bad. He's this moment. There's basically is effectively like a round or two where he's just like, they're freaking out. What do I do? And I actually will need out of character a quick reminder of what people are doing so I can figure out how he's responding to things.
So we have, let's see.
So
we have Dr. Wigglesworth down on his knees crying out to the heavens in a voice like thunder. We have Dr. Moore just transfixed by it. Tremblay has taken off at a almost superhuman run. And actually, and Valentina just...
I'm standing next to Stoddard saying just like, I don't know why they're freaking out. Isn't this just like a big dead dog or something? I mean, it doesn't look that impressive, does it? This is what
Look, yeah, I mean,
go and look for.
Well, they're not really canine in look. He's like, dog. What is there canine about this? Look at this majestic find. Like, you see stuff like this. I don't remember if the Smith in the this is something that belongs in a museum of natural history.
This I'm not. No. Click a
the
picture.
fact that it is not the cold and ice has preserved this, so it's not simply bones in stone. This is incredible. And there's that moment of he's like, okay, that one's running away. No, I have to deal with, like, I'm better at dealing with dead things. Oh no. And he's gonna, because Wigglesworth's closer, he's gonna be like, he's going to try to he's gonna try to comfort him, but it's gonna be kind of awkward and stilted, like, buck up, it'll be okay. Might just be the shock of it all. As exactly awkward as I'm saying that, like, this is a man with a psychology roll of 10.
It's just impossible. It's a desecration.
Science is about uncovering the impossible and learning what is actually possible that we thought was impossible all this time. Look, I don't even think it's worth me rolling psychology to calm him down. Like, but eventually be like, it is definitely a bit much. But maybe it'll be better after you've had some time in camp to get warm again and visit with fresh eyes.
And it's only about 15 or 20 minutes before a sense of calm kind of returns, or a sense of control returns to various people. And Professor Moore suggests that it's probably best that, at least for now, we stay away from the other snow hummocks. I need to examine this, and fetch a sled, and a sled is brought down. The body of this thing is laid out upon it, and is brought into the sample tent and laid out. And
maybe there's the big species of bat we used to be around here or something. I don't know. It's just an animal. It's fine.
And whilst that is all going on, the two Boeings arrive back into camp, bringing with them two of the three pieces of the drilling rig, as well as something that they put right at the very end of the chapter, just because they could. I thought. Oh, here we go. As well as extra film and supplies, Yes, just extra film and supplies, and the drill team. So Johnson, O'Doul, and that evening, you yet again gather around the radio for the report back. And Starkweather, so you get to hear secondhand Starkweather's midday update, where he's apparently well up the side of the mountain, finding the going rough due to all the slick ice, and carrying the radio all the way up to the top will be difficult. So he's just planning to leave it behind. If you don't hear from me by the first, come looking, but we'll be just fine, I'm sure. And you can tell that Professor Moore is having difficulty controlling his excitement as he reveals to the world the presence of the elder things. You should all know that we have found some of the unusual specimens discovered by the late Professor Lake. They're quite remarkable, even in the deteriorated condition. A more detailed report must wait until tomorrow evening, when Professor Bryce and Dr. Stoddard can take a closer look at them. But the good news for everyone, however, unless I miss my guess, the specimens are every bit as sensational as we'd hoped. Do any of you wish to send any messages tonight?
Nope. It's unnatural. It's horrible. It's repellent.
I think Stoddard is probably in the. I don't think he's ready to send notes yet. Or message yet. Beyond a very brief. We found. Mention of this incredible find. Basically, I think Moore also made mention. Be like, this is, as a paleontologist, this is incredible, and what brought me to this expedition. I will send on more once I've had a chance to finish working with my once I have a chance to develop my notes.
Valentina's going to send a message to be relayed back all the way eventually. That is, since she's her mind is kind of just twisted all this into just making this a report. She's not going to report on this, but almost do a short section about finding the previous campsite and the sadness that she felt seeing the names and those who lost their lives in the last expedition. Almost like a memoriam type article.
Yes, we shall not let the sacrifices that these brave souls made be forgotten, etc. Absolutely. So by the time that everything has been sent, or at least from Moore's group, just like last night, you hand over the radio tent to Miss Lexington and her group. Now, last night they were on the radio for a few minutes. You head off towards your various tents, but you all notice that after half an hour, there's still a light inside the radio tent.
Is that not normal? Like
It's significantly longer than it was last night, and also you do see Priestley, who's the camp chief of Lexington's party, standing in the entryway door flap of the radio tent.
Must be correspondence from home, some society stuff. They were here all day. I can't imagine they have that much to report.
should we go to make sure everything's okay, or let it be?
You said, Stefan, you said that the chief's in, like, he's in the doorway of it, right? Almost like,
Yeah.
just not in a way that indicates that, oh no, something horrible's happened behind me, but more of a, give them their time to use it, as I understood it.
Yeah. They're sort of keeping this is our turn. Look out. Seems to be the vibe he's giving off.
And do we know who's in the tent? Is it Lexington?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna keep a lookout, and when she leaves, see if I can see if I can pick anything up as to what her state of mind is when she leaves the tent, if that's possible. Probably not through all the clothes. It'd probably be hard.
So it's about another 20 minutes before she eventually shows in the tent opening. Has a sort of up close or probably whispered conversation with Priestley, and they wander off towards their half of the camp. But go ahead and make a psychology roll. But as you say, you're looking at hard.
Yeah, I just got a regular success, so
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you say, it's inside Arctic snow hoods at distance at night. They spoke. That's basically what you can tell.
Stoddard will probably enjoying their getting to not having to fight Starkweather for the radio.
So the night continues on, and by the time you wake up on the 29th, it is practically a heat wave. It's almost 10 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 12. Absolutely balmy. I mean, it's warm enough. The you can take off your outer layer of Arctic clothing and just walk around in 2 as opposed to 3 layers. If it wasn't for the constant wind with the ensuing wind chill, it would be just delightful. At breakfast, Moore takes you aside, as it were, and says, I'd like to try to find Lake's tent, if we can find it. He might have left some information there.
Of course, anything related to the previous expedition that might be otherwise unknown is invaluable.
The only question, of course, being is, where is Lake's tent?
Do we just want to go in the line, or do you want to pick one at random?
I don't know which is best, says Moore. I'm happy to take your advice.
Well, he was the head of the expedition, right? We can try to map the layout how how your expedition or others would center the lead, where they'd put the leader's tent, and try there.
Probably at one of the edges.
That does narrow it down. So, do we have? Is there anything from the notes that talked about? I mean, I know we've only got Dyer's account, but did that have anything about proximity to Lake and the layout?
It didn't mention it. During the morning, you will have been able to fairly quickly, taking all of the morning, between all 20 of you now in camp, to clear off the top layer snow, so things are a little bit clearer, and you've also got at least 2 Dornier wreckages. Also, 2 other areas of the camp that you've come across. One is what appears to be, if I go to the right screen, a fuel dump, which is quite handy. In the 450 gallons of fuel that you discovered that still seems to be usable is going to come in very, very useful. You also find the remains of what you believe to be Dyer's campsite from when he arrived here as the rescue mission. Um, so I would suggest, yes, just roll a d4 for one of the corner huts.
Either Tremblay or Wigglesworth can roll. So
Yeah, I'll go for it. Or we could race, Tremblay. What do you say? Drinks on whoever first.
That sounds like an appropriate race.
Okay.
oh, so 1. Oh, they got the same thing anyway.
Well, 10 1 it is. So, as we can see, this tent is actually in quite good condition, which means that it's, as you were uncovering it, it had been pushed down and flattened by the weight of snow and ice on it. And as you remove the snow, it erects itself out of the snow at one point as the strength of the tent poles overcomes the remaining weight of snow and ice. So this pale white, creamy fabric suddenly just rises out of the snow almost by its own magic. I would like everybody to make a spot hidden.
Stoddard got a hard success.
Valentina got a regular.
So, of note, even though the fabric of this tent is quite in good condition, you do notice 2 small holes in the tent flap and another near the apex of the tent itself. And you open up. So I was going to say, in fact, yes, you open up the tent flap, bringing light for the first time in 3 years into the interior of this tent, where the frozen floor is uneven, but the entire tent floor is just covered with a red-black frozen layer of some substance.
Do we sanity roll now?
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to ask everybody to make a first aid roll.
I'm like, can I nope out of this now?
Nice.
You and me, Wigglesworth, scream buddies.
I can't hear you.
In the Arctic, no one can hear you scream.
In the Arctic, everyone has to hear you scream.
Look, it could just be ice. Ice makes weird noises.
Enough people have made it the realization that there's probably between 10 and 12 pints of frozen blood on the floor of this tent strikes home. And that's where I call for the sanity check.
I assume from all of us, right?
Yes. I should roll for
Aha.
Dr. Moore.
At least I
since
made
he's
that
with
one.
you.
Stoddard just makes it.
Ooh. That 70 versus 70 just rolled off a 100.
I feel like Stoddard and Moore are weird stuff buddies. Like,
Yeah.
Stoic
So
time.
for making the realization that somebody has bled to death in here is just 1 point with a successful
I was
sanity
assuming
check.
it was multiple someones. That's even better.
Roger, of course, being the one who really realizes that just how much blood that actually is, gets a D4. So let's see. Roger started at started at 53, 11. He took 5 plus 2 is 7. So he's yes. You're other than just a momentary step back and, as you say, noping out. Roger is okay so far. He's only taken 7 versus his 11.
Anybody finding it
20%?
Colder again?
Well, there's certainly a shiver that goes down the back of his neck.
And I'm gonna reach in and grab my flask and take a nice long swig again.
Is this the next day then, Stefan? Since when we had the last check?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So my 20% starts over?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting really, really close to that number. Also, I have a question about the Bouts of Madness from the day before.
Yeah.
Do Tremblay and Wigglesworth now have Cthulhu Mythos then?
That is a good point. Yes.
Should be 5
They have indeed. So yes, they both have a 5% Cthulhu Mythos.
And I think I don't get that because I did not since I failed the intelligence roll, I don't get the 5%, I don't believe.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, you still have the glory of that gift to be given.
Okay.
Hooray. Well, there's a silver lining, guys. I know that the world is ultimately meaningless, or at least I know 5% of that.
And
Perhaps
I think
you mean a
that's
red black lining.
with that realization is a perfect point to draw a line under tonight's misventures, and it only remains for me to thank everybody for a glorious night's gaming, and who knows when we will next see you again. So good night.